Now, something else is that you can focus on. You can focus on your family. Think about all the things that you've ever thought about that you wished you had more time to do, right? This is it right here, folks. This is kind of everybody's, especially those of you who work really long hours. This is all of your wishes come true in a sense, right? Not necessarily we want people around us getting sick, but having more time to spend with family, having more time to get that activity done, having more time to go for that walk, to ride your bike, having more time to learn how to crochet or to knit, having more time to read that book, to organize that closet, having more time to spend with your wife or your children or your, husband, etc. So now is the time. Focus on what you have control on focusing on. Family being an important part of that, because part of our culture and part of what we've lost, in my opinion, over the last probably decade with technology is we've lost a lot of inherent family time together. Most people, a family gathering is 4 people in a room where they're all on their phones, not talking to each other. But now you have this opportunity to reconnect and rekindle those relationships and make greater meaning from them. So use this time of tragedy to, again, to enhance or improve the quality of your life, the quality of your relationships. Very important, because you don't know when you're going to get another opportunity. And if you let this one pass you by, you might regret it. So focusing on those things in your daily life becomes pretty important. Let's talk about what not to focus on in your life right now. So I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were you could just tell they were really stressed out. They were really high anxiety, really, really stressed out. And I asked them what they'd been doing to be so stressed. And they said they've been watching the news. And now many of you probably are watching the news right now to try to stay updated. And I know some of you actually have the news on in your house 24/7. Actually, I talked to somebody and they have the news on in their house playing 24/7. Best advice I can give you is don't do that. Okay. Right now, the news is overblowing this thing. They're overblowing the danger. They're overblowing the death rates. And it's not to say that people aren't dying. And that's not to say that this thing's not a pandemic and that this is not a serious incident that's going on right now. It's just simply to say that the news works on selling you fear. And if you allow that into your heart, if you allow that into your household, then it's going to affect your health in a negative way. Remember, fear activates a part of our nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight nervous system. You've heard me talk about that. So if you have that news on 24/7, that fear sets in and it increases your sympathetic nervous tone. Why is that a bad thing? Because the sympathetic tone, when it's increased, this is fight or flight. If you ever heard that term fight or flight, that's what I'm referring to. It increases your adrenaline, increases the hormones of stress, cortisol and adrenaline. And so what does cortisol do? Cortisol raises your blood sugar. And when you have your elevations in blood sugar, this is what, over time, long periods of time, that's what they call diabetes, right? But we don't want elevations in blood sugar if we're stuck at home, because we're stuck at home in fear, but we have nowhere to run. We have we're limited in terms of our capacity for exercise unless you're doing what I just showed you to do, that Tabata activity. So you're sitting there in your mind with fear spinning in your mind with no physical outlet for that fear. And that will drive up your blood sugar. And when you're not exercising and you don't have that activity, that blood sugar is just going to be floating around thinking it needs to be used as energy because you're in a fight or flight mode. But there's no fight or there's no flight. The only fight or flight is in your mind. And so you have to tune out the fear mongering so that you can turn down the sympathetic response, which is what we want. Remember, when sympathetic is turned on, what else does that do? That reduces your nutrition by suppressing digestion. So we think when we're trying to run away from a bad guy, we're not really trying to digest that meal, right? So we want our nutrition and our digestion to be really, really solid right now. We want it to be solid because nutrition is one of the most critical components to keeping your immune system strong during this time to help, as much as possible, prevent you from getting sick. So you want to keep out of that fear mode. So keep that news, turn it on. If you want to get an update once a day, or if you've got a web, my advice would be go to some of these websites that actually collecting the statistics and look at that if you want to look at that. But for the most part, again, these are things you can't change. You can't change the statistics. You can't change the infection rate, the mortality rate, the morbidity rate. You can't change whether or not there's a major emergency room catastrophe in your hometown. Those are things you don't have the control or the power over to change unless you're an emergency room physician or an emergency room nurse or somebody who's working in that environment, in which case then you're on the front line. But most of you are not on that front line. So focus on what you can and avoid the fear. So news and TV, try to keep those to a minimum right now, unless it's for entertainment purposes, and also internet. So, we can actually say this too. Now, if you've been watching me over the last few months, you know that even the internet is driving some of this too. They're driving it in one way. I don't know if I'm going to keep reiterating. The New York Post accused me of recommending near lethal doses of vitamins, even though they couldn't back up the statement when I sent them the research, and they actually withdrew what they said. The internet is spreading fear in different ways, and that's an example of how they were spreading fear is by saying that, worrying about nutrition is actually near lethal. So again, watch your sources, watch who you're tuning into, and if it's creating a sense of frenzy in you and it's creating a state of panic in you, you need to shut it off. Do it for yourself and then focus on the things. Now, the other thing I would say that you shouldn't be doing right now is speculation. And this is human nature. So, it's easy for me to stand up here and say, don't speculate, but intelligent people will speculate. But what I really mean by this is not that you can't speculate on what's going on in the world with COVID-19. It's more, don't go down the rabbit hole. Man, there's 1,000 theories out there right now on how the government is, part of the government is trying to ruin Trump. That's one of the theories, right? There are several other theories. Some of it is where they're trying to mandate vaccines and they're using COVID as a messenger to do this, and that they're going to, inject nanobots into you so that they can track you everywhere. Like, stop all that. Like, you can't control or change any of that. So whether it's a theory that's valid or whether it's a theory that's completely bogus and bunk, there's not a whole lot that you can do, and it doesn't serve you to dwell on all these different rabbit hole theories that people are coming up with. Even if there might be a degree of truth to certain things, again, it doesn't mean that you need to spin your wheels on these things. Control the things that you can, and that really boils back down to you. Number one is you. So if you want to control some things, control your current situation in your current environment. If you got caught unawares by this whole thing and you didn't have enough food, then control the learning mechanism of next time I'm going to prepare a little bit better. If you have not the best of health because you're struggling with an autoimmune problem, or you're struggling with some other health issue because you haven't been eating right, because you haven't been sleeping well, because you've been overworking, like, now you don't have any more excuses. Now all you have is time to focus on yourself and to focus on your family. So now it's really time to get to work. So don't focus on the TV. Don't focus on the fear mongering. Don't focus on the theories that are out there. Take care of your house, and your house will take care of you. That's the best that I can give you. So let's talk about what you do have time to do today. And so I'd like you guys to chime in as well on what you plan on doing. So now you have time to see your kids, to spend with your spouse. You've got time to engage with people who love you in your home directly. You've got time to start that exercise program, to ride that bike. You've got time to clean that closet or organize that closet that you've been focusing on. You got time to read that book. Like, if you haven't read No Grain, No Pain, hint, hint, pick up your copy and start reading it, especially if you struggle with autoimmune disease and you want to find your path back to wellness and health. Now, you've got time. Fill in the blank. What do you got time to do? What is it that you've always wanted to do that life got in the way that you couldn't do? So, those of you who are paying attention, chime in. Let us know. What are you going to be doing? What are you going to do to improve yourself, as opposed to sitting in fear and sitting in hypersympathetic dominant states that's only going to continue to destroy your health? So what are you going to do that's going to be the antithesis to that? So fill in the blank and talk to me. So that being the case, I want to give a shout out to, and I shot a video, and it should be published here in the next day or two, on vitamin C, because there's some new information coming out about vitamin C. But I want to give a shout out to Dr. Weber. He's a doc in New York, who's injecting or IVing 1,500 milligrams of vitamin C into all his COVID diagnosed patients. And then they're getting 3 to 4 treatments of 1,500 milligrams of IV vitamin C throughout the day as they're there. And what he is finding is he's finding better outcomes in those people who are being treated with vitamin C. So kudos to Dr. Weber for pulling together such a, I'll say dangerous, according to the New York Post, dangerous level of treatment that he had the courage enough to actually implement it in the hospital system. And what they're seeing on the ground is they're seeing improved outcomes and improved results as a result of using that tool. So kudos to Dr. Weber, and thank you for what you're doing. And thank you for having the courage to bring that into the hospital system. It was long overdue, and I'm just super, super excited to see that you're using that and that that's helping people recover a little bit better. Hey, and if you missed the earlier part of this series, click right here so you can go back and get caught up. The information there might be critical to helping you on your path to better health. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe for updates below. Have a great day.